Hi everyone, today what we're doing is we're starting our new topic of hardware, the basics. So we're going to be talking about all the different types of devices that build up a computer system and make it actually work. Now today's lesson, what we're going to be focusing on is the use of input devices, and hopefully a lot of you have used input devices before. But by the end of today's lesson, you will be successful in your learning if you can 1. Describe the purpose of an input device in general, 2. Identify most of the input devices that we're going to look at in a second, and 3. State the use of most of the input devices that we're going to discuss, okay? You're going to get to focus on, for your task this week, one particular input device, so pay attention when we're going through, and hopefully you'll get some information to help you with your task, okay? To start off with, there's a wee starter. On your task sheet you've been provided with this week, I want you to see if you can list the names of the different parts of the computer system. Now these are deliberately hard just to see how many of you are interested in different bits of computer and if you know what they are. So pause the video, have a little think about it, fill it on your task sheet, and then come back when you're ready. Okay, hopefully you've filled out what the names of those different devices are. So let's have a little look at input devices. First of all, I want to explain to you what the term input device actually means. Basically, when we're using a computer system, in order for us to get information into the computer system, we need to use some sort of input device to get that information from us, the humans, into the computer system. And there's lots of different ways to do that depending on what type of data we want to input. So thinking about the 5 main different types of data that we have multimedia in computing, we've got text, graphics, sound, animation, and video. And depending on what we want to put in, we might choose a different type of input device. And depending on the mode or the form that media is in, we might need to choose a different type of media device again. So what I'm going to do is just talk through some of the most common types of input device and have a little look and see if you recognise them and if you know what they're for. So here's the first one that most of you will, I'm guessing, recognise and will use on probably a regular basis. It's a mouse. Okay, a mouse is used to control the cursor on the screen and to select different objects. Okay, we use it rather than having to use different devices that we might have on things like a laptop where we use a touchpad or a trackpad. Okay. Then we've got a keyboard. Again, probably the second most common type of input device. We've got a keyboard that allows us to input text so we can type directly into documents, and also it's great for things like numbers if we're doing any calculations. We've then got a microphone. Now, a microphone is used specifically for when we want to enter sound into our computer system. This may later be used as part of a video, for example, or it could just be used for like what you're doing just now, listening to a narrated PowerPoint. But a microphone will be built in or can be used separately and plugged into your computer to allow you to input sound. Games controller, so depending on whether you use an Xbox, PlayStation, Wii, Switch, these come in all different forms and sizes, but they're used specifically for playing games. So they will be designed, and the ergonomics and the shape and the position of the buttonings and the analog sticks will be different based on the type of platform they're working with and the games they're most commonly used with. You'll notice that both Xbox and PlayStation controllers are really similar to each other because they're used for really similar games on both platforms, mostly for first player shooters where you want the control of both the analog sticks and the buttons from the bumpers at the top to be able to be used quite easily. Digital cameras. Now this is something that a lot of people don't have nowadays because most of the time we have a digital camera built into our mobile phones, but digital cameras are an input device in their own right. They have a camera built into them which you can take photos with, digital photos, which can then be stored on the camera and put into your computer system, or sometimes they have their very own output device screen built into the camera so you can view the pictures straight away. Webcam. So this is something that we've been using a lot recently over the last wee while we've been working across in Teams and on online tutorials. A webcam is basically something that's either built into your computer system, like on a laptop, or you can put on top of your desktop that allows people to see your face. It works very similar to a digital camera, apart from it records video, and it allows you to see your face when you're talking at a computer system. Really good for things like video conferencing and talking to people on Skype or Facebook Portal or something like that. Touchscreens. So this is something that's become increasingly popular over the last few while. Touchscreens are usually built into phones, smartphones, Tablet computers, sometimes even laptops now have touchscreens built in, and what that allows us to do is to be able to actually select and use things on our screen without having to have a keyboard and a mouse to be able to do that type of thing. We also combine that with some virtual software, so we get virtual keyboards so that our touchscreen can allow us to type in text as well. So it's a very useful tool and allows us to select things on the screen with our fingers. We've then got digital video cameras. So again, these are a little bit different to digital cameras. Digital cameras used to be predominantly only used for taking pictures, whereas digital video cameras were used for recording, so sometimes called camcorders. We're recording actual videos. Again, most digital cameras will allow you to record videos now, and both of those devices have kind of been superseded by the introduction of smartphones and tablets now, where we can actually take videos straight onto those devices rather than having to take them onto a camcorder and upload them. But a lot of people in professional context still use these, so you'll notice that if you went to a wedding, for example, they would still have a proper digital camera that they're taking pictures on because the quality is a lot higher. And if you were to move into the kind of film industry, then people use really large and complex digital video cameras for taking film shots and for taking TV program shots, as the quality would be a lot higher than something we might get on our phone or our tablets. We've then got a scanner. Now again, something that you might not have come across a scanner. What a scanner is when you want to get a picture into a computer system, but rather than taking a picture of a live scene, like you would do with a camera or a phone, this is when you've already got a picture, so like perhaps a photograph or a document that you need to take a copy of. What the scanner allows you to do is to create a digital copy of something that you have on paper. And it works by transmitting light onto the document that you put inside it, and then it will scan a digital copy. So the light shines on it, the light shines back into these little receivers. The receivers receive the colours that are shined back off the camera or the document, and it scans in a digital copy. And quite a lot of people will find that you sometimes get scanners built into printers nowadays, so you can scan information in, and they can almost be used like photocopiers sometimes as well. It depends on which one they are. This one is just particularly a scanner, which is just used for getting the information in. And once it's in the computer system, you could use an output device like a printer to print out another copy if that's what you're looking for. Joystick. So again, not something potentially are used that much nowadays, kind of been superseded by games controllers, but joysticks tend to be used for simulations. For example, people who use flight simulators or learning how to fly planes, they'll use them on specific computer systems to learn how to use the different controls. Or they're sometimes used for gaming, for people who game on PCs with specific types of games where a joystick's more appropriate potentially than a controller. Again, Xbox and PlayStation controllers and things like that, they can actually be plugged into your computer systems as well. They don't have to specifically be used with an Xbox or a PlayStation console. Okay, so they're all for different types of gaming. We've then got the touchpad, which is what we've got built into a lot of our laptops. So instead of having to have a mouse when you're on the move, the whole point of being able to use a laptop is that you can use it when you're sitting on the train or perhaps on the couch where you don't have as much space to have a full computer system sitting out. So the touchpad that's built in, almost like a mini touch screen, in that you don't see what's on the touchpad, but you use it to control and select information on the screen with a cursor, similar to what you would with a mouse. We've then got a clicker. So again, you might not have seen a clicker before. A clicker, a mouse pointer sometimes called, is what you'll sometimes find that teachers in your class might use. They can use it so if they're standing up next to the board, they can change like PowerPoint slides and they can move PowerPoint slides on without actually having to go over to the computer and click the screen. Also, another people who use this on a regular basis are the people who do the weather. So the weather video in the background will change when they click their clicker, and it saves them having to go back and forward and select something on the computer. They can continue talking and present while using the clicker. Also, a lot of them have things like a laser pointer embedded into it, so that they can point to different things on the screen, again without having to touch the screen or to make any contact with the computer system. So it's almost as like a mouse that's really far away from your computer. Then what we've got is called a stick pointer. Now stick pointers are starting to go out of fashion a little bit. You used to find them on a lot of laptops in the middle of your keyboard. So if you have a little look at your keyboard just now and see if you've got a stick pointer in the middle, some people have them and they don't use them or they don't know what they're for. They're effectively the same as what a touchpad is used for. So they're almost like a mini joystick. A mini joystick like this, which is in the middle of your keyboard above your touchpad, and you can use it to move your mouse about on the screen. So some people prefer not to do the scrolling on the touchpad and prefer to use a stick pointer and then use the touchpad to click things. But it's another version of a mouse used to control your cursor and to move your cursor around the screen. This is another example of something that's used to replace a mouse. This is called a trackball, and effectively what it is, it's like an old school mouse. Before they had lasers, they used to have a ball inside them that would help them move the cursor, the cursor around the screen. What this one does is it's almost like a mouse that's been turned upside down. And you actually use your fingers and you scroll them across the touchpad, on the trackball on the top, and what that does is it moves the cursor around the screen. Now the main difference between it and a mouse is that a mouse you can get sometimes like a strain in your shoulder from moving that mouse around on your computer, like on your desk, for example, whereas with a touchpad your arm would stay completely straight and all that would be moving would be your fingers to move that ball around and to get the cursor to move, and then you use the buttons on the left or right, similar to how you would use a mouse button. So a lot of people use that if they have sore shoulders or use a computer a long period of time, or for people who have like mobility issues, for example, and maybe don't have as much movement on their arm but can use their fingers okay. That's a good example of how a mouse has kind of been adapted to make sure it can be used by all different types of people. We've then got a graphics tablet, so that's used specifically for people who are really into drawing and into graphics. Nowadays that's kind of been combined with a touchpad or touch screen, and we can actually draw straight onto screens. So some of the new iPads and things like the iPens, you can draw straight onto the screens. But before we had that, we had graphics tablet. They just basically look like a mouse mat that you plug into your computer system, and when you draw with the stylus, the pen, straight onto the mouse mat, the image would appear straight up onto your screen. And that's used for like a lot of people who do animation, the computer animations, to draw images straight onto your computer systems, which could be changed. Okay, down on the right hand side here we've got something called a Visualiser. Similar to a webcam, apart from rather than just looking straight at you, the head of the visualizer can be moved about and can point to anything. So quite often when you go to things like colleges and universities, they'll have visualizers that'll shine down onto the desk, and a teacher might be writing out information onto like a bit of paper or something, and it'll allow it to shine back onto the computer, and you'll be able to see that up on a screen, for example, or on a projector system on a different type of output device. So the visualizer allows you to be able to see something that might be on the desk in front of you. It's also good for demoing objects. So if somebody was wanting to show you how something worked, for example, then they can use this mini camera to almost like film just what their hands are doing to explain something to you. And you'll probably find quite a lot of your teachers have been using them over the last wee while to demo some work. We've then got remote controls. So again, they're an input device. We're pressing the buttons, giving the computer some instructions. They're taking that information in, doing something with it. This one, for example, controls a projector that tells it to do something or to move on a slide or to turn on and off or freeze. So remote controls are an example of an input device as well. Barcode scanners, again quite specific. That's specific to being used in a shop. Barcode scanner that allows us to take information into a computer system by scanning the special lines. They all have a unique identity for different products in the shop and allows us to take in information into a computer system. We've got special keypads that can connect onto controllers that allow us to type in text. So again, similar to a big keyboard, but a lot smaller basis, and allows us to plug into another input device and be used on top of that. And then we've also got different types of gaming controllers. For example, here we've got a steering wheel, and what the steering wheel does is allow us to use this control in a slightly different way by using the different kind of gravity pulls to allow us to allow that controller to perform in a different way. So there's lots of different types of input devices that you may have come across over the last wee while. And your task this week is to pick one and to do a little bit more research, and you've been provided with the worksheet with which to fill out about that. So before we look at the worksheet, let's just remember that the 3 things that will be successful for your learning this week is if you can describe the purpose of an input device, putting information into a computer system, if you could identify some of the input devices that we've looked at, if you were to be shown pictures, and if you could state what some of those input devices are used for. Okay, so let's have a little look at the worksheet. Now, your worksheet looks like this. Okay, so you've got your space at the beginning to write in the answers to your starter, and then you've got to choose your input device. So let's just say, for example, you went for a microphone or a games controller. You want to put some pictures of different types of input devices in here, and then you're going to take the text here that's prompting you some information. You're going to delete all of that and write in your own information. That's just to give you some ideas of what information you might put in. So what is the device predominantly used for? Are there any special features about it? What kind of price ranges have you looked at? What's the cheapest? What's the most expensive? What makes it cheap? What makes it more expensive? Does it have better features? If you were going to, specifically be doing something, let's say you were doing digital cameras and you were a wedding photographer, would you need to buy one that had specific features based over one that was perhaps a little bit more cheaper? So do a little bit of investigation on one of the ones you're interested in, fill it out with your name and class, and pass this back to me so we can mark it at the end of the week. Hopefully that all makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions.